One of the most annoying tasks that you probably have to do is to manage your invoices manually. Therefore, in today's video, I will show you an AI agent that you can build yourself that manages all of your email invoices. It extracts all of the data, puts it into a centralized database. It downloads the attachments to your Google Drive folders so you know where everything is. And overall, it just fully automates the whole management of your invoices. So to show you real quickly, this is the flow that you already can see. I'm gonna hit test workflow and you're gonna see that what it's gonna do is gonna fetch the email that came in with an invoice. It's gonna upload all of that data into Google Drive. Then it's gonna extract the data from the invoice itself and it's gonna fill out my Airtable with the data that was in the invoice. Therefore, I can track everything. So for example, if I go into my Google Drive folder, I can open it up. I can see that invoice was uploaded to Google Drive. I can go into my Airtable. I can see that the email subject was added from which the invoice came in, the email from which the invoice came in. Then there's an invoice link added. So again, I click on it, I'm being redirected to the Google Drive here. I have the full amount of the invoice, and then I can see the invoice line items, such as, for example, what I was charged for. So it was web design and tax included. And then if I go into, let's say, each line item, which again, they're also extracted separately, I can see that for the web design, I was charged $85, tax was $8.50, and then I can reference back to the original invoice and see what invoice was it. So as you can see, pretty useful AI agent that does this on autopilot. So just so you can see, this was the initial email that I received. So I sent it to myself, but basically it has a PDF attachment. It just has, a random subject, and it's being triggered by specific emails that come in with PDF attachments. So without talking more about this, let's jump into building it step by step. So I'm gonna move this to the side so you don't have to worry about it, and we're gonna start from scratch. But also, if you wanna download this workflow, there's gonna be a link in the description below where you can download this, upload it, and run it without any modifications. And also you can subscribe to my newsletter. I'm gonna start sending out these workflows weekly. Whenever I build a new workflow I have to share, I'm gonna be sending in my newsletter, so you can keep an eye on it. But now let's start building it. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a Gmail trigger. So let's go to the Gmail and on message received. Over here, I'm gonna select my credential. So I think this is the one I needed. For the polling times, I'm gonna select every minute. Then I'm gonna unselect simplify, because when you unselect simplify, there is an options, and in the options you can select download attachments, which is gonna be very important, basically the most important part of this workflow. So for example, if I hit fetch test event, you can already see that the file name has been received, and yeah, the email is being pulled. The next thing we need to do is to set up a filter. And I'm gonna add a filter, and this filter is gonna be necessary for us to filter out if an email actually has an invoice attached. If it doesn't have an invoice attached, then we're not gonna proceed with the automation. So over here, I'm gonna select expression. I'm gonna add curly brackets. Then I'm gonna select the Gmail trigger, then .item, .binary. And here we're gonna select object exists. So essentially what we're doing here is saying to the automation that let's check the email trigger doesn't contain a file. If it does, then let's proceed. So for example, if I test the step, you can see the attachment was passed on. Great, so we have the filter set up. Over here, it might seem strange, but I'm gonna add another Gmail trigger, which is get message. And this is for me so I could, fetch the binary data again, because later on we're gonna be passing it to another modules. but again, I'm gonna select my credential, resource message, operation get. Then for the message ID, let's go back into the schema, Gmail trigger, and ID over here. Then under the simplify, I'm gonna unselect it. And then once we unselect simplify, again, we have options, download attachment, select download attachment, test the step. Again, I can see that we're fetching that attachment. Now, another thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna set variables for ourselves, so later on we can reuse them. So the first variable that I'm gonna set is gonna be attachments, and essentially I wanna set an array. So for example, if there's more than one attachment, they're gonna be added into array. So for example, these keys are gonna be added into the array. So again, I enter, so I should select expression. So we have double quotes. Then let's select the Gmail node dot item dot, let's select binary dot key. Yeah, dot keys. Yeah. And as you can see in the array, I'm getting the key of this attachment, which is attachment underscore 0. And I'm gonna set another field, which is gonna be message ID. And again, in the expression, I'm gonna go back to the schema, Gmail node, and it's gonna select JSON.id. So let's test this step. And as you can see, we have the attachment set up. Then the next node is gonna be split node. Let's add it. So again, if we will have an array, for example, if we have more than one invoice attached, it's gonna loop through each of them. In this case, I only have one, so this wouldn't be necessary, but it's good to cover all of the cases. So I'm gonna just drag this here, attachments, and include all other fields. Now let's test the step. Let's see the JSON schema. So for example, if there would be more than one attachment, they would appear in an array separated by comma. Great. So maybe let's move these up, because now what we're gonna need to do is set up a merge node. So let's go back to the merge node. Here, I'm gonna select a function or mode, combine by matching fields. So maybe let's just drag this here. And what I'm gonna do is add a Gmail node as an input number 2. So here, I'm gonna come back. Then on fields to match have different names because they do. And in here, what I'm gonna enter is message ID. And on the input field number 2 from the Gmail node, I'm gonna add ID, like so. And in the output type, keep matches, and both inputs merge together. So what it's gonna do, this is gonna basically allow us to merge everything. So we would have the edit fields that we have here, which is attachment keys, and the binary data itself. So for example, if I run it and then I jump back here, I can see that essentially I have the same thing, which might look strange to you, but this is necessary in order, for example, to now upload the data to the Google Drive. So over here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go Google Drive, select this one, and go for the option update, upload file. So I'm gonna go over here. So I have already credentials set up. So the resource is gonna be file, operation, upload, and input data field. So over here, what I'm gonna do is, for example, if I go to the schema, this is gonna be from the merge node. So let's just drag the attachments, and the input data field name is going to be JSON attachments. And for the file name, we can create our own file name for that particular attachment from that invoice. So the first thing I'm going to do, so already selected the expression, I'm going to add curly brackets. Then I'm going to select the Gmail node, then dot item dot JSON dot subject. So as you can see, invoice to Eustace is already fetched. Then what I'm going to do is just I'm going to type underscore, and again 2 curly brackets. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the merge node, so this one, merge node.item.json.attachments. And this will allow us to know, for example, how many attachments there were for a specific file name. So for example, this is the email subject that I get. And then, for example, when it's going to be uploaded, it's going to let me know that, for example, if there was a subject invoice to Eustace, we will get attachment 0, so there was only 1. But if there would be 2, so we would get invoice to Eustace attachment 0 and invoice to Eustace attachment 1. So that's why I'm doing this specific thing. And then for the folder, what I'm going to do is from the list, I'm just going to type it in test attachments. Yeah, I don't know why I have been redirected. That's it. And for example, I can test the step. I can go back, can refresh this, and you can see 2 attachments have been added because previously I ran the workflow and now I tested the step and it uploaded again. So let me just maybe delete both of these. So later on when we run, we can see clearly. Yeah, so for this one, also what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rename this, upload to Google Drive and rename it. And then, which again might seem very strange, but I'm gonna add another Google Drive node. And this is going to be download file. But essentially what we can rename this to download binary data, because we need to download the binary data in order to extract all of the details. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to select to extract by ID, and I'm going to go back to the schema and the file that you uploaded. So from the upload to Google Drive node, we just add ID over here. And as you can see, the ID is being fetched. So I'm going to test the step. Again, we got the data, we got the subject. And I know that this might seem like we're doing extra steps that are unnecessary, but at least this is the best flow that I found to be working for this exact AI agent. But again, you can subscribe to my newsletter. We're going to be sending out my workflows, or you can download the workflow itself so you don't have to build it step by step. But yes, it might seem like a bit unnecessary, some of these steps, but I'm just trying to explain everything why I'm doing these things. And let me take a sip of water because, yeah, my mouth gets dry. All right, now the thing that we need to do is put an extract node. So extract from file. And in this case, we're going to be receiving invoices in PDFs because all the normal companies usually send out PDF invoices. So over here, I'm going to select extract from PDF. And here, extract from PDF, the operation, and input binary field data. So for example, if this key would be different, for example, if it would be, I don't know, data 0.2 or something, then we would have to add data 0.2. But every time you download a file from the Google Drive, it has this field as data. Therefore, we just put here data without any expressions, and we don't really worry about it. So let me test the step. Then we can, for example, go into the JSON. And we can see that the text, so we extracted all of the text here, all of the invoice text that we have. But now comes the interesting part, because let's go into advanced AI, and we have to add a step for AI to basically recognize what each invoice actually is, how many line items it has, and like what is the amount for each line item. And to do that, we have to use AI. So, okay, I selected, I think, incorrect node. Let me just check. Yeah, I think it's simple chain prompt. Yeah, I think I used simple prompt. So for the model, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select OpenAI. because I have already credits in OpenAI. For the model, I'm gonna select 4.0 mini. So I usually use this for testing because it's much cheaper, but if you want this to be as accurate as possible, even though with 4.0 mini, as far as I tested, it's pretty much worked 100% of the time. But if you wanna be sure, select 4.0. It's gonna be a bit more expensive, but the quality is there. So we go into the basic LLM chain. In here, for the prompt, I'm gonna select define below. And for the text, let me copy it from my previous workflow, but it's gonna be a pretty long prompt. So for example, yeah, let me open it up. So maybe let's just add it as expression and expand it. But you can see it's quite a large prompt for what it is. But basically what it is saying is that you will be provided with PDF invoices. You need to extract information such as invoice name, company name, total invoice amount, line items, and then provide an output in this format specifically. So then later on we could loop over the line items. And these are additional notes that I add. But again, this whole workflow is gonna be in the description down below, where you can download it or you can subscribe to the newsletter where I'm gonna be sending out these workflows. And basically when you upload the workflow into n8n, the prompt's gonna be already there. So you don't have to configure anything manually. But important thing that I need is to require specific output. So for this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this output that I asked in the prompt. I'm gonna copy it. Then I'm gonna come back here, and as you can see, another option appeared, which is to add output parser. So I'm gonna do is select on it and select structured output parser, delete the filled data, and paste the pattern that we asked AI to return. So this is gonna make sure that our extracted data is always structured how we want. So later on, we can add it into our database. If you use QuickBooks, add it into QuickBooks or whatever. In my case, it's Airtable. So for example, if I run this, first of all, it's going to provide the text to the OpenAI model, and then it's going to structure the output in a correct way. So if I click on this, you can see that I get the output and I have invoice name. So it extracts the invoice name, company name. So again, it extracts the company name that sent us the invoice. It has the total invoice amount, and it extracts the line items. In this case, we only had 2 line items, but if you have more, it's going to extract more, and this workflow is going to work in any case. So now the next thing that we want to do is add an Airtable node, because for this case, we're using Airtable to track invoices. If you have Google Sheets, you can do exactly the same. So for here, what I'm going to select is create record. For the resource, we select record. For the operation, create base. So for here, we have to select invoice management, because this is the base that I use. For the table, we're going to go into the invoices and mapping column mode. So again, I have email subject as columns. I have email, invoice link, amount, and invoice line items. So if you go, let's say over here, so maybe let me delete it. And I'm gonna delete these records as well. But these are the columns that I have. Again, you can see that I'm extracting company name, invoice name. I'm just not adding that into Airtable, but if you want, all you have to do is add 2 additional columns where you store the company name and the invoice name, and then pretty much you have to add these additional fields in n8n. But for this, so we already selected that table. Now all I need to do is add the email subject. So I'm gonna go back to the schema. I'm gonna file my Gmail node, and here I need to find the subject, add it here like so. Again, select expression in the email. So again, in the Gmail node, I'm just gonna search for the email from which we received. So let's add it like so. Oh, but it adds it in a wrong format because I store it as a simple email. It adds the whole string. So maybe let's do it like so. I'm gonna select email.json .to .value .value. So this is an array, so 0. So we're grabbing the first item, .address. And here we go. We are gonna be extracting the first email and its address. Just gonna be added like so. For the invoice link, what we can do is, again, double quotes, then upload to Google Drive, .item, .json, what we have here, web view, web content link. No, maybe I think we should select web view link, and there it is. So for example, right now, every time you're going to be filling all the data into Airtable, you're going to be able to manually check what was the invoice, because it's going to be added to the Google Drive, and this is going to be the share link. For the amount, so this is the data now that we're going to be extracting from the latest model, I mean LLM chain. So for here, yeah, we're gonna select total invoice amount. Total invoice amount like so. And for the invoice line items, I think we can delete it because this is the initial information that we're adding, and then we're gonna need to run a loop to add all of the line items. But as you can see, I filled out the fields. So again, right now the invoice table in the Airtable is empty. But if I test the step, run it like so, you can see we filled it out. If I go to the Airtable, I can see the email subject, the email invoice link. So again, if I click on it, I'm being redirected to where the actual invoice is being stored in the Google Drive. I have the amount. And then when we continue to this flow, the next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna add our line items. So we can track basically everything that we want. Yeah, and I know that my humor might be childish, but I'm sorry, this is not my first language. Right, I don't know why I even said that. Damn. Okay, so for the fields that we need to set, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set line underscore items. In here, what I need is array, and so over here, I think I'm gonna drag and drop this one, and that's exactly it. So I get the array that was provided by an AI. So this is, if you go to the schema, this is gonna be line items. And for, yeah, then we need to store basically the Airtable ID of where the original invoice was added. So we need to know what record ID was of this invoice that we added into Airtable. So for this, we're gonna enter subject ID, and here I'm just gonna pull the last ID from the Airtable, and as you can see, I have the record ID over here. So if I test the step, again, we have the line items and we have the subject ID like so. And now we need to again add another split item, so split out. In here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna split on the line items from the last edit fields like so, and include all other fields because we want to include subject ID into each item that is going to be returned. So test the step, and as you can see, we have subject ID, so the ID record for the same Airtable record, and separated line items with their separate amounts. So this is exactly what we wanted. And now probably the trickiest part is adding a loop. And loops might seem difficult at first time, but the more you work with them, the easier they get. So for example, I'm gonna add into the loop Airtable node, and I'm gonna select create a record, like so. So the base, again, is gonna be the same, invoice management. The table is gonna be line items instead. Can I type it in? Yeah, invoice line items. And here I need to map the values. So for the line item, oh, I probably should, can I execute this? Yeah, execute it. Yeah, so for the line items, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drag from the loop, I'm gonna drag the description, right? Right, yeah, the description. Then I'm gonna drag the amount. And then now we actually have to link it to the invoice. So here it's going to be a bit tricky, but this is how the Airtable works. If you use Google Sheets, it might be a bit simpler. But here, what I'm going to need to enter is, for example, JSON dot subject ID. And so far, everything seems simple. But if I would run this, I would get an error. Oh, succeeded. Let me check. Yeah, but nothing has been added. But basically, here you have to store, oh, so execute previous node. You have to store this as an array because Airtable tracks linked records as array. And essentially what we're doing is we're adding here an array like so. And pretty much we have it done, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add here is do nothing, so no operation. Just gonna drag it above. Let me reference back to my old workflow. Yeah, and we have everything set up accordingly. So we finished setting up this flow that's responsible for extracting all of the data. But now let's see it in action. So for the test attachments, I'm gonna delete everything here. For the invoice, again, I'm gonna delete the invoice. We still have the email that we received, so it's gonna be, this one is gonna be pulled, and I'm gonna test the whole workflow. So let's hit test. We run through all of the steps. Now LLM is extracting all of the data. We're looping over the items, and if we go into the, first of all, Google Drive, I refresh it, I can see that we added an attachment here for storage purposes, so we can reference it back. If I go back into the invoice, I can see that the invoice was added. So we have email subject, we have email from which we received the invoice, the amount, and the line items added. Again, I click on the invoice link, I can see the invoice itself. I go back into invoice line items, and I can very nicely see like what were the line items for each invoice, their amounts, the sum, and which, invoice it is. So basically this AI agent can fully manage your invoices from your email, and that means no more manual data entry. So if you enjoyed watching this video, hit a like, hit a subscribe, and of course, again, there's an email newsletter where I'm going to be sending out these workflows weekly, and also you can download the workflow through Gumroad. I'm going to add the link as well. So you basically just can upload this workflow onto your n8n instance and run it without pretty much modifying anything. So if you enjoyed, again, hit the like and see you in the next one.